she just got shot, and then next thing you know, all the art windows are getting shot at, they're shattered.
Students were saying when they heard those initial gunshots. We've heard from the Santa Fe ISD police chief that fewer than 10 fatalities, fewer than 10 people have been killed.
One of her other daughters, also a student at the high school, ran away from here shouting, quote, "She's been shot, she's been shot."
A 17-year-old Demetrius Pagorchis goes by the nickname Dimitri. Here is his Facebook post. You can see it.
Just within the last hour, we learned that there are explosives that were both on and off the campus.
There's the long army green coat, and if you look in the upper left lapel area, it's a Nazi Iron Cross. That post, I can tell you, also talked about kamikaze tactics. And
what else is happening throughout this community?
2 people are in stable condition, 1 person is in critical condition.
There's the dark green t-shirt. In your lower right of your screen, it says "Born to Kill."
To the students, families, teachers, and personnel at Santa Fe High, we're with you in this tragic hour, and we will be with you forever.
Friday, May 18th, 2018. Another sign of the times in America. Santa Fe High School in Texas, the end of the school year. During first period, a 17-year-old opens fire. Tragedy unsettles an entire Southwest community. Politicians will argue, philosophies will differ. But parents and their children continue to question the safety precautions in every school in every city in America, including Jackson. In the next half hour, we explore those questions with people who have lived through mass school shootings and others whose job it is to keep our children safe. This is a documentary seeking the answers in West Tennessee today.
April 20th, 1999, Columbine High School. 2 students open fire inside the school. 13 are killed and more than 20 are injured. The 2 students then kill themselves.
April 16th, 2007, Virginia Tech. A 23-year-old man shoots and kills 32 people.
December 14th, 2012, Sandy Hook Elementary. The shooter kills 20 first graders and 6 school employees. 12 other students are injured.
February 18th, 2018, Stoneman Douglas High. The shooter, a previous student at this school, kills 17 and injures many others. Protests and marches follow all the way to the nation's capital.
These are only a few of the schools affected by mass tragedies over the past 20 years. One recent school shooting occurred less than 2 hours from Jackson. Parents and students everywhere are asking, when will it all end?
Now more than ever, parents are asking if our communities are doing enough to keep our schools safe.
Shannon Stewart is a mother who is concerned about school safety.
There's no such thing as a school that's too safe, in my opinion. So I think anything that we can do to ensure the safety of our children, I think that we should do those things.
Pastor Barry Scott observes how other establishments are more secure than schools.
Banks are secure. You don't hear people robbing banks that much, or it's not that easy to rob a bank. Major sporting events are secured. There must be something we can do to secure our school.
Dr. Scott also gives us ideas on what can be done to keep our school systems from threats.
I think it has to be a combination of things. There's got to be safety protocols. I don't have any problem with having security to get into a school building, metal detectors, trained armed security people.
Parents like Stewart and Dr. Scott are not the only ones who realize a major problem exists with the safety of children at school. The government is also aware and is feeling the pressure to become involved.
The day of innocence for children and teens in schools is long over. None of them today will grow up in a world without fear of danger. School safety is now one of America's most important political issues.
Tennessee lawmakers have just voted to increase the amount of money for school security.
Well, the one thing that I think that we're lacking, obviously, is funding. We need more funding, and the governor and the governor's office has offered several different grants that are coming out.
Ultimately, it's a responsibility of all of us. Parents, neighbors, teachers, school administrators, all of us need to continue asking the question, are our children safe?
We traveled to Benton and Paducah, Kentucky, cities that had been affected by school shootings. Nearly 20 years apart and less than 50 miles apart, these cities experienced the horror of death in public schools. They changed the face of each community. Paducah and Benton are small towns. The clock can never turn back. Just as occurred in Paducah 20 years ago, people in Benton are still trying to recover from the emotional shock of this past January.
It's easy to say that a school shooting can't happen in a town like Jackson, and we hope it never does. But cities such as Paducah and Benton are proof that violence can occur anywhere.
This is Paducah, Kentucky, a city about 2 hours away from Jackson. Around 25,000 people live here. This is not the place where you would expect major crimes to happen.
This town was laid out in 1827 by William Clark of the legendary Lewis and Clark expedition. In 1937, a major flood forced 27,000 people out of their homes. Paducah has known its share of tragedies.
Education has also been an important part to Paducah. The city and county only has 2 high schools. However, a former high school will forever be known for far more than its graduates.
It's a school that's in a wooded area several miles from downtown Paducah. People live in homes across the street. It's a place most people would consider as a haven from danger.
This is Heath Middle School. 21 years ago, it was a high school. December 1st, 1997 was a day that forever changed Heath High in Paducah, Kentucky.
I got out and went towards the school building, past a bunch of my peers. It must have just happened because they had not closed the hallway doors yet. So I walked up the steps of the school, looked down the hallway, saw bodies in the hallway, turned around and left. Called my mother, who was home from school that day, told her what had happened, hung out with my friends until my stepfather came because he was on the site-based decision-making council. I remember him directing traffic.
Dr. Scott remembers his congregation coming together after the shooting.
We also that Sunday had a special altar time. We had, so I believe there were four all young ladies, if I'm remembering, that were killed in that. And we had like a candle lit, and we had everybody come to the altar. I mean, it was just filled an unbelievable scene.
He reflects on one of his church members' admirable actions.
It centered around one of our high school teachers who had helped one of the girls in his arms while she died there at the school. Wow. So, I mean, it was incredibly powerful.
It is hard to imagine anyone going through a tragedy such as this, but the survivors have remained resilient.
I cannot imagine what it would be like to actually be in the skin, say, of that school teacher, or some of the other young people that were there or witnessed it, or some of the young people that were very close friends, both with the shooter and with the young people that died.
The community as a whole put a lot of emphasis on moving forward, getting back to normal. There was a lot of emphasis on faith, which I think was hard on us as kids. I think the adults had a lot of trouble seeing us in pain and were ready to sort of push us forward. But, you know, in retrospect, we didn't have quite enough time to process it.
I have seen resilience in my hometown of Paducah. I've seen people rise up from that very traumatic experience and become advocates.
I mean, we went back to school the next day, which I always thought was a good thing, but there's a lot of my friends who were way too traumatized to go back to the same physical location the next day.
I think you think about things like in terms of before the shooting or after the shooting. You know, like our life looked like this before the shooting, and now it looks like this after the shooting. And I think when you refer to things that happen in your life, it's always like before or after.
In the case of many school shootings, mental illness has a direct connection. When we return, Dr. Joanne Stevenson and other experts offer their perspective on this issue as we continue to explore the question, are our children safe?
I don't know what our family would do without TiVo. It doesn't matter if a show is live, on demand, or even streaming from Netflix. No more juggling remotes, switching inputs, or guessing who has the show or movie we want to watch, because it's all on one box. TiVo has great apps like Plex, which lets us stream home videos and music from our computers and phones. And with kid-friendly apps like Toon Goggles, I feel safe giving the kids a little TV freedom. And I can enjoy mine too.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local Boys and Girls Clubs. Great futures start here.
Own a lawn mowing service? Propane works for you. Propane can go where you go. Tanks easily changed, no spillage, quick transition, clean burn, increased energy efficiency. Propane, the affordable, clean alternative fuel wherever you mow. Find out more about JA's ProGas. Call 422-7500. Propane, the alternative fuel that makes sense. Part of JEA today.
We experienced an unthinkable tragedy at our high school this morning.
We prepare for moments like this on a regular basis, and the last time we were prepared for mass casualty was last week.
You can see the gun and the knife on the right and a video game on the left with some sort of rifle video game there.
We can't let the ball drop when people are saying somebody's dangerous. Do something about it. And we need to let kids see that there are a lot of ways of solving conflicts.
Mental health counselors help to create an outlet for students to keep a safe space while in school. But Dr. Stevenson says we don't have nearly enough counselors to help the need.
We should have programs in the school about emotional intelligence. We've been pushing that for about 20 years, and very few schools have them. That's where you have self-awareness, self-control, empathy. Our kids have no empathy.
I think the issues in debate today are gun control and revising or revamping our mental health system. In my view, the primary issue is mental health in our country. Our system of mental health must be revised.
I think there's a lot better discussions and resources with regards to mental health, but it's as far as sort of automatic triggers, there's not a lot of those, and automatic triggers like to put someone into that process.
We need to look at our laws and consider private rights or the rights of the individual versus the public good. And that's basically what the debate is.
We need to put programs in the school where we sit down and explore issues with our kids. And everyone will say, oh, we don't have time. When do we teach the 3 R's? Well, you can't teach 3 R's to dead students. And if our students don't have life skills and survival skills, mentally and emotionally, then I don't care if they have math and science. You know, it won't matter because they'll be dead or kill someone else.
Station WLKY looked back many years later at the Heath High tragedy. The principal says a day never goes by where he does not think about what happened.
That was one day. I have 3,000 other days at Heath High School, and that was the most significant day, but there were 3,000 other days here.
Seniors at Heath on that tragic day are now in their late 30s. They were all affected on the day, only 3 weeks before Christmas. For some, it is still difficult to tell their stories.
Sarah Holland was a Heath student on the day of the shooting. She says, just as the case in many communities, Paducah was unprepared for such a tragedy.
I think that they did the best they could, but that there was probably not enough focus on everybody's sort of individual grieving.
Washington Post writer David Coppell outlines 4 major issues linking mental illness and crime. Untreated severe mental illness is a frequent cause of homicides. Treatment of severe mental illness can greatly reduce violent crime. Many people with mental illness do not seek help, and treating mental illness costs 4 times the amount as imprisonment. A Paducah City Commissioner and former Heath High student is an activist on the issue.
I helped start a local Moms Demand Action group that lobbies for change on both the state and federal level for legislation.
From a purely law enforcement angle, Jackson-Madison County Sheriff John Mayer tells us how school resource officers is another way to increase the safety of schools.
Build a connection with the students. They build a connection with the teachers and administration in their schools that they're in. And then the SROs, the different schools, communicate with each other. And so they know what's happening in each school. And they're able to pick that up and inform the teachers. But you also receive information. So that lots of times will diffuse something before it ever happens.
Michael Morris, Jackson-Madison County School Safety Coordinator, also shares his thoughts on the importance of law enforcement on campus.
There is actually a sheriff's deputy that's there on campus. That's for each of them, and they are a very good resource as far as with the schools. They help form relationships with kids and so forth. So if there are some things that may stir up, a lot of times, those law enforcement that are there on the campus kind of know the kids and know what to look for.
When you have your children and you send them to school, there's an element of trust that you have. And so you just trust your kids to make the right decisions. But also you have to trust the people that are caring for your children at that time. And so I feel like where my 4 girls are in school here in Jackson, I feel like the people that they're with, I absolutely trust, wholeheartedly.
The Heath High story still haunts many people in Paducah more than 20 years later. When we return, we'll travel 45 miles to Benton, Kentucky, where history repeated itself earlier this year.
Gig, 1,000 megabit speed, now available to any E+ broadband internet customer. This gig-enhanced infrastructure has the capacity to increase speeds in the future. E+ broadband, what many interpreted as JA's entrance into cable television, was actually the foundation of an unparalleled communications infrastructure. Looking out for Jackson's economic and lifestyle future is all a part of JEA today.
And I was angry at people who seemed shocked because I felt like we didn't change anything, and I don't know why we were shocked about what happened, truthfully.
Let's take a look at another school affected by a tragedy.
Almost 20 years to the day of the Heath High School shooting, there was a shooting at Marshall County High School, which is just about 30 minutes up the road from Paducah. And I think people thought that they had healed from the school shooting in Paducah, but then when things started happening in Marshall County, you know, when all that went down that day, I think it brought up a lot of the hard things that people had thought that they had worked through. So I don't think you ever go back to a normal when you experience a tragedy like that. I think you experience a new kind of normal.
This is Marshall County High School. It's 45 minutes east of the old Heath High School. In January, Marshall County made national headlines, not for its academic programs.
Marshall County High School is in Benton, Kentucky. Its principal is Patricia Greer. On the morning of January 23rd, Patricia's life, as well as those of her student body, were changed forever.
For hours, parents waited to discover if their children would emerge alive from Marshall County High. People in Jackson were also paying close attention. Benton, Kentucky is much smaller than the hub city. When a mass tragedy happens this close to home, you no longer have the thought, it can't happen here.
Authorities say 15-year-old Gabe Parker opened fire. 2 students were killed and 14 others were injured. Parker is still awaiting a trial.
The school was put on lockdown. Schools around the area were put on lockdown. And first thing I did, I checked social media just to get updates about everything that was going on, and saw that it was 1 dead and about 7 others wounded. And then come to find out it's 2 dead and 15 others that were wounded. I mean, it's just a sad situation all around. Pretty much everyone in the community is just heartbroken.
I felt very frustrated that I was having to watch these kids go through this again, and that I felt guilt because I didn't feel like I had done enough to make a difference to protect future generations from what I went through.
New rules have been set in place concerning safety at Marshall County schools. Staff have been trained to conduct metal detector and bag checks. The school district has worked with the sheriff's office to provide a strong law enforcement presence on the high school campus. 11 employees have been hired to patrol school grounds. 8 of the employees are present on any given day, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Entrances at the main building have been limited to 4. When classes begin, that number is reduced to a single entrance near the main office, which is under constant surveillance. An anonymous text tip line has been set up so students can report safety, threats, and bullying concerns. The MCHS Safe School tip line number is 274637, and the tips should contain the hashtag MCHS. 2 more mental health professionals have been added to support students throughout the school day.
7 years ago, Jackson 24/7 was allowed to follow along inside an active shooter drill at Northside High School. While these drills have been refined since then, this is a clear picture of how students and teachers practice for a day they hope never happens.
When schools such as Northside High have a drill for an active shooter situation, they go on lockdown. The day we were allowed to go along, former Principal Ricky Catlett began with a briefing with his emergency team.
We got to step up to let them know if that person comes in on you, to do something, not to stay in it.
And then you rush them.
Yeah, right.
You have
do all you can.
You do everything and have in mind that you want to take them out.
Right.
One of the challenges of securing a campus such as Northside is its mere size. The school property covers 55 acres. It has a north, middle, and south campus, as well as 2 stadiums. When Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut faced an out-of-control shooter, life was forever changed. 20 children died. 6 others were killed. Soon afterward, 12 people were murdered by a crazed shooter in Washington, D.C. at a naval yard. We live in a culture where many people think it can't happen here. But the day of those words are over. Every school, church, or business in America now has to prepare for a worst-case scenario. On this morning at Northside, the drill began with these words.
Okay, attention please, we're in a lockdown. Please secure all the emergency exits, lock your classroom doors, remain in your classroom until further notice.
Northside and other schools in Jackson and Madison County do these drills both announced and unannounced. For more than a year, teachers, students, and staff underwent training on how to react in the event of a violent person gaining access to the campus. The emergency team made the rounds to make sure that instructions were followed.
Stay down, stay where you are now.
This classroom was typical. In this one, more than 20 students huddled in the dark on one side and were told to remain quiet. And then you have the matter of people who are caught outside during an active shooter situation. Those are not allowed back into the building.
It's coming in, trying to get in, to try to get there, so we got to really, hey guys, and I know you don't know this, but if we have a lockdown, like that's what we're under right now, we're going to send people either Walgreens or this way, okay? Not now, but.
At one point during the lockdown, a mock intruder was in the building. Listen to what happened when the national championship ROTC team pounced on him. This was an office area where people had been told to hide, turn the lights out, and not answer to anybody. This is what the total reaction was afterward.
Will somebody let me in? Come on, somebody.
They did the right thing. All in all, the lockdown was successful, but Catlett, who is now at Chester County High, is always looking for improvements.
We've got a emergency management team here that's made up of about 14 or 15 members, staff members, and so they've been well prepared for the situation that we're ready for today. And you know, we never know how that's going to change.
The mere fact that every Jackson-Madison County school continues to go through this kind of drill reflects this truth. Life has changed forever in every school in this city and across America.
How safe are our schools? We put that question to Michael Moore and the city's Deputy Police Chief, Barry Michael.
There are a lot of different safety features. All buildings have a speaker system or a microphone system where when you first get to the building, you must hit the buzzer. Therefore, the administrative assistant in each building actually gets to see who the person is before actually allowing them to enter the building.
The police department has, we have a couple of our SWAT guys, a couple of our officers trained in active shooter training, and they work with the school system at the school system's request to train faculty, students, whatever, on what to do in the case of an active shooter.
Chief Michael had a direct experience with a scary situation 4 years ago. On a Friday morning late in spring semester, a note was found which included a bomb threat and a shooting threat at Union University. For more than 7 hours, the campus was cleared. Nearly every senior police officer in the city of Jackson was summoned to the Union campus. A perimeter was built around the Union property. That day, Union and Jackson were lucky. Nothing happened but a day off from school. But it was a warning sign of what could happen.
We have to search the campus. That was a bomb threat, I believe. And so we have to search the campus with our bomb detecting dogs and with others that are trained to see. But most importantly, we got to make sure that people are safe.
Emotional trauma can be a lifelong response to surviving a tragedy. Terry Blakely is a social work professor at Union University. She tells us her own story of surviving a shooting that took the life of her husband.
Well, in 1999, in Miami, Florida, a 19-year-old man went on a shooting spree, and our family was the first to be hit. It was after that he went on to kill and maim other people, and then he shot himself as he was confronted by police. So in that shooting, my husband, who was a pastor at a church in downtown Miami at the time, he was killed, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law were wounded. And so our family was changed forever. In the aftermath of that, we discovered through his journal writings that he had planned for a whole year to go on a shooting spree, and that he was inspired by the Columbine shootings.
Amidst the tragedies, communities continue to look for ways to prevent mass shootings from happening in the future. The question usually comes down to this: what can we do that we aren't doing now to keep our children in our schools safe?
I mean, I think that there's always something more you can do, always.
There actually should be like random tests to put people in that situation and know how they would act in that situation.
They don't realize we need to solve our mental health problem. We are doing nothing.
Preparation is key, and especially now, in the time we live in, where this is becoming more common.
As much money is being spent on schools, then surely we can find the money nationwide to secure a lot of our schools better than what we are doing right now.